So the size of the properties out here are enormous, which means that the conservation areas are also very large by the standards of other conservation areas that we have within the Murray Riverina. That presents its own challenges, but at the same time, it also has its own benefits. It's allowed for a significant area to be put into conservation, long-term protection for plains wanderer habitat within the priority area for conservation of the species in New South Wales. So we have 8 properties under agreement with us at the moment in the Plains Wanderer program, totaling about 20,000 hectares of land. And there is a nice spread of those properties throughout the priority area for saving our species. There is a linkage to the Ullumbeen National Park as well, which is wonderful. So, we've done a great job, and the landholders are doing a magnificent job managing these areas for plains wanderer. We certainly have opportunities to potentially secure more areas into the future to broaden the area that's under long-term protection.
Historically, plains wanderers have lost a lot of their country that they would have once occupied through clearing for agriculture, for cropping in particular. And that initial habitat loss would have had a massive impact on the distribution of the species. With the arrival of Europeans, we also brought things like rabbits and foxes, foxes being a predator to the species, and we know from the work that we've done that foxes do have a limiting impact on plains wanderers. And then coupled with that, droughts. When they come on, sometimes we leave grazing on for too long and the habitat goes backwards and turns unsuitable for the birds.
The thinking behind it was we had the country to set aside for a project like this, and we actually had a lot of country that we could do. So the way we manage the country is very similar because we don't overstock. If you crash this ground too hard, or if you overstock it too hard, it tends to damage your native grasses, and then you get a weed profile, and then the dynamics changes. By stocking it probably a little bit less than what's required, we tend to, it keeps everything in balance a lot better. So, especially in drought, we make sure we've got good seed banks. So if we go into a long extended drought, soon as it rains, we'll have the grasses back.
So a key component of these conservation areas is that we are assisting the landowner to help manage the plains wanderer habitat in ideal condition. That will require grazing at some times when the grass levels are very high, in particularly wet years like we're seeing at the moment, and then to remove livestock when the grass level drops below a certain amount. Plains wanderer need about 50% bare ground, so they need a fairly open grassland, and sheep or cattle are the best way to sort of reduce that grass load, which can be done any time of year. So we monitor that to see if that's being achieved and see how that compares to if it was business as usual, so we can see how our investment's going, and then we can tweak things to make sure that that's being achieved.
Well, the conservation agreement with BCT, we're really keen on doing it because we were sort of managing that country in the manner that the BCT wanted it managed anyway, and we knew we had plains wanderer here, so we jumped at it. Our business has always strived to increase the diversity of the landscape and increase the landscape, probably taking it back to what it may have been 100 years ago. So it fit in really well with what we're already trying to strive to do.
So the great thing about working on this project is you do meet a lot of landowners that are really inspired to conserve this species and have a real strong interest in it. You get to see some of these really unique landscapes that aren't typically captured in national parks and that sort of thing, and I guess that's why we do private land conservation, because these areas aren't in national parks. So I sort of feel privileged to be able to come out and check out their land, and you create great relationships with the landowners, and It's another great part of the job.
Private land conservation is really important for pines wanderers. Probably 95% of the habitat is found on private land, so to manage this species, to conserve it, to recover it, it's critical that we have those landholders on board.
More pairs, more plains wanderers, that's why we're doing it. Birds on the ground, that's it.